Hello, Mike. Welcome to your Founders Podcast.
Hey, what's going on, Ash? I'm glad you had me.
Great stuff. All good, all good. We had some good summery day. Well, 2 weeks of summer in London, but we're back to the grim, gray, cold again this evening, I guess. It doesn't look good anymore.
All right, so you know I'm in Texas, right? So I don't know that summer in London is the same as summer in Texas.
No, it isn't. I know I'm a big fan of Texas because I watch all the episodes of Big Bang Theory and Young Sheldon, and I know it's
Yeah.
always summary, right? So yeah, great stuff. Well, thank you so much, Mike, for your time. I really appreciate it. I want to learn quite a lot from you today, and I want our listeners to learn quite a lot too, because I think your high impact services around the cash flow has been helping quite a lot of founders around. But before we start, do you have a motivational quote, something that inspires you, motivates you, you would like to share with our audience?
Yeah, it's the one thing that I think I've internalized and made it just part of what I do every day, and that's money is an energy, right? You can't chase it, you have to attract it. And when I say money is an energy, it's got a positive vibe or a negative vibe, right? There's an
Mm,
emotion connected to it. So that's what I want people to remember is that there's always an emotion connected to money.
interesting, interesting. A lot of people um, have this theory of I think there's a book also, something like The Secret. I think so, where they say
Okay.
that you have to manifest um, to get something into your life. And I think that's maybe that you're inclining towards similar kind of energy
Yeah,
concept.
I think it's very similar, right? I think it's really similar that way. I mean, because that's the way it feels to me. Every time I've tried to chase money, it just eludes me, right? Every time I wanted to be really aggressive at it, but the more I take a step back and provide what I say is value or help others or think of others in my life, the more I'm blessed.
Hmm.
Right? That's the way I look at it.
Interesting, interesting. All right. So, Mike, imagine this then. We are in a room full of ambitious founders and early stage builders, right? No one knows your name, and you have got just a few minutes to introduce yourself, but not with your title or what you've been working on, but with the story that explains why people should trust what you have to say. How would you begin?
Oh, that's a great question, Ash. So, for me, I always feel like I have an aura anyway. When I walk in a room, people always want to come up. They want to say hi. I think it's a smile. So there's always kind of, an energy around me that kind of leads to that. But my story, what I always start off with is, hey, what's going on in your world? How, meaning that I'm not thinking about me.
Hmm.
So I always try to think about them. But my story would be, how to go from state trooper to cash flow Mike in 25 years.
Got it. Got it. Great. So, how do I'm very intrigued with um, the, the 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 name you got in the industry now. People call you Cash Flow Mike. How did that happen?
I think it was by accident, right? So I teach at the graduate school of banking at the University of Colorado, and I was at LSU, Louisiana State University, and I've taught at the University of Washington, at the Pacific Coast Banking School. And one of the days, I think I was in Baton Rouge in Louisiana, and I heard a couple of students out in the hallway saying, "Hey, there goes Cashflow Mike." And I stopped them like, "Hey, why'd you call me that?
Hmm.
Why'd you call me Cashflow Mike?" So I don't know if they was making fun of me. I don't know if they were real. They said, "No." He says, "You just don't talk about profit. You talk about cash flow. You talk about the need for cash. You can be profitable on paper and not have any money in the bank." So I mean, they said we just called you Cashflow Mike. It was kind of a joke, and I'm like, going, man, that's better than my real name. So I'm going to kind of lean into that, And I tell you, once you get past the embarrassment of calling yourself a nickname, it actually became a pretty good brand, right? It's one
Hmm.
that's easy to say, easy to remember, easy to recognize.
Indeed. And that's what fascinates me. That's what inspires me when I interview, guests like yourself who have this natural, uh, trajectory of being where you are because it came to you naturally. That hasn't been any, like cosmetic changes you have to do in order to reach there, right? It was always been into your story. So let's talk about where your story began. Where did you had this passion developed inside you? What was the time when you were learning about this um, idea of understanding the cash flows in the business, and then became uh, cash flow?
Probably unlike a lot of other founders, I wasn't trying to be an entrepreneur. Right? I
Mm,
wasn't trying to do that. I went to a military academy. I got commissioned in the Army. I was in the National Guard for a long time. In my first job, I was a police officer, right? I was a state trooper in St. Louis. And that's what I thought I was going to do, right? Because
mm,
once you get one of those jobs, you're pretty much there from the time you go into the academy till the time you retire.
mm,
And then life happens. So I've got an MBA, a master's in business from Baylor University, and I'm writing a student loan check. And as I'm writing a student loan check for this college degree, I'm looking at my pay stub, or thinking about my pay stub, which is not very big, right, as a
mm.
police officer at that point in time in the 90s. And then my wife says she's pregnant with our third daughter. So literally, Ash, my family outgrew my income, and I had to go do something else. I had to go figure out how to make more money. I'm like, I've got a business degree. I should go try to use this thing, right?
Yeah, yeah. And sorry, I missed that. Did you ended up signing that check or not?
Oh yeah, yeah, because you have to make a student loan payment, right? So,
Oh yeah.
but what I ended up doing was, leaving the highway patrol,
Mm,
and that's the scariest thing in the world. You leave something where the insurance is paid for, retirement's pretty much set. It's a guaranteed automatic paycheck every 2 weeks, right? So you leave something like that, that's so secure, and then you say, I'm going to go out and do it on my own, right?
mm.
So I didn't have much skills. What skill transfers from being a police officer or being in the Army to civilian world? Not a lot of skills transfer that way, except one: I could clean. So I
That's not a
started, my
bad
first
skill.
job was just a janitorial company, right? I'm like, well, I can make things clean. I know that part. So
Mm,
started a little janitorial company, and quickly that morphed into a different set. I got an opportunity to provide labor to a hotel,
mm-hmm.
and I built a hotel staffing company out of it, right? So I changed my janitorial company into a hotel staffing company, and that's where it took off, right? That's where it actually happened, because there was no niche at that point in time that just provided hotels with people like housekeepers, like landscapers, like housemen. I called it heart of the house positions. People that do a lot of the work, but they're not the face of the property, right? They're not at the front desk. They're not managers. Those type of things. They just do the work.
Mm,
So I did that, and Marriott picked me up as a preferred vendor by the work we were doing in St. Louis, and then that's when I learned about cash flow.
mm.
Here's why. Here's what happened. I opened 27 offices in 9 states in 3 years and had a few hundred people working every day. Well, when that happened, I also maxed out my credit cards, took a second loan out on the house, burnt down my savings. You're like going, why? Well,
Mm,
because as I was opening offices, I was also making payroll. So every 2 weeks, I had 100 or 200 checks that I had to cut to my
mm.
employees, and Marriott wasn't paying me for 90 days, right? So
Oh,
I've got to make 6 payrolls, right? I got to make payroll 6 times before I get the first check from the first week's invoice. So think about that.
how come the big giant Marriott is not paying you for 90 days? Is that standard in hospitality?
It is a not just hospitality. It's standard across just business. Meaning 90 days is a long time though. So
Mm,
it really is. But if they can get away with it, they'll do it, because it's called stretching your payables. And the longer you can wait, the more time you keep cash in your own company. Well, I actually had to go to them and go, hey, listen, I realize that that's a business strategy. It's the accounting strategy to keep cash in your company a lot longer. I said, but I need you to think about this like payroll, not paper towels.
mm,
Because if these people were your own employees, you'd have to pay every 2 weeks. You're taking that and spreading it out 90 days in the future, right? You're kicking the expense down, but I
mm.
have to fund it. I'm your bank right now for payroll.
Yeah.
And when I kind of explained that to them, they actually started paying me a little bit shorter. So I got it between 45 and 50 days. And you cannot believe the weight that comes off my shoulders just because I'm getting paid a little bit faster.
Hmm.
It's a concept called the financial gap, and most every business has a financial gap, and that's the difference between money coming in and money going out. And the smaller the gap, the less money it takes to run your business smoothly. And that's kind of where I learned about, how to balance and the timing of cash flow.
Very interesting. So you learn the basics of cash flow while doing the cash flow exercises in your own business, right?
Yeah, while ruining my own life. You're right.
That is the
And then it works
perfect
itself out. Yeah.
yeah, that's the perfect kind of founder I need on the podcast, who can share the real girth of the situation. Great. So give us a little bit more understanding of that business's size, how much you grown that business to in terms of revenue, number of customers, size of the team. You said that you opened like more than 20 offices across the whole UK.
Yeah, across the U.S.
Yep, sorry,
You
across the
know,
US, yeah.
yeah, that's all right. But most of it was west of the Mississippi. So, think St. Louis. I was in St. Louis and Kansas City and Tucson and Phoenix and Dallas and Houston. I opened across that whole from here to California, just about. I mean, not here, but from St. Louis, Missouri, over to California. So the western half of the United States. And most of it I grew through word of mouth. It was the weirdest thing. It's never happened to me before because usually you have to go chase business. I didn't have to because there was such a demand for this. And what would happen is one manager would get promoted and go to a bigger hotel or move to a different city or, take a different job. And they'd go, hey, I know who can solve your labor problem. And they'd call me. And, that happened time and time and time again. And probably 70% of my business was just coming from people that had moved jobs or talked to each other, in the Marriott family. And then, of course, somebody would go from Marriott to Hilton, and we'd be in a Hilton all of a sudden, right? So,
Yeah, yeah.
and the big thing there was the managing the cash. And I did something probably dumb to some people, but smart in my case because it did help. Early on, when I was struggling with cash, I had kind of an idea to bring more money in because I didn't know if I could get Marriott to pay faster. So I bought a little bar restaurant. Why? Because I had cash coming in every single day as opposed to waiting for 30 or 60 or 90 days for money to come in. And back then it wasn't ACH where it was digital. I had to go to a mailbox and open a mailbox saying, is there a check here today? Is there a
Yeah,
check here today? I didn't have to do that in the restaurant, right? You could just get your credit card. So I bought a little restaurant that actually we were able to turn around really fast and started generating more and more cash. And that worked so well that I built a restaurant. Then I bought a building that had a restaurant in it. And then I bought 9 more buildings. So think about what happened there. I went from one hotel staffing company to all of a sudden I had a hotel staffing company, 3 restaurants, and a property management company of 9 buildings. So it was really a crazy thing, but the buildings had rent every month. The restaurants had money every day. And then, of course, the hotel staffing company was the biggest of all 5 of those companies running at once.
That's very interesting, and that's all based on um, the first company you started. So let's take a step back then. How did you manage to get Marriott on your customer list at first? Was it like a one-to-one connection with someone you're working with?
Yeah, in the janitorial company, I had a client that left. He just managed a little cable TV office, and he became a hotel manager.
Mm.
And he just asked me, he goes, man, we're having trouble finding people. You never seem to have trouble finding people. How do you do it? And I told him, because I was a former police officer, right? I actually had connections with the parole office. So people that were transitioning out back into the society from jail, from prisons, those type of things, they would come through me as a job. I mean, if you can't clean, I mean, what can you do, right?
Yep.
So I took the responsibility of hiring people that were coming out of incarceration. And he goes, well, I can't hire you for cleaning, but I can hire people because he couldn't have a cleaning contract, but he needed people. He goes, would you be willing just to sell me on an hourly rate people that we use, right? Just, I mean, can you send them over here when we need folks? And that's how it started, was one guy that I knew that took the job that was looking to solve a labor problem. Now, how we got good at it is that my whole focus, I'm like going, man, I don't have to clean anymore. I just have to make sure people go to work.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
So my whole job, yeah, because if you didn't go to work, I didn't get paid, right? So think about it. Ash, if you worked for me, I would charge the hotel for your hour of work, but there was a markup. So if you didn't go to work, you didn't get paid, and I didn't get paid,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So my whole job was taking away people's reasons not to go to work. So I built a management team in every office, and their job was to take away the reason. So if somebody would call up and go, "Hey, I can't come into work today because I don't have a babysitter," we had a list of 10 babysitters.
Mm.
At every
Ready
office.
for you.
So
Yeah.
we're just like, hey, I got a babysitter. If they said, hey, Uncle Jim's got to go to the doctor at 2 o'clock, so I can't go to work today. I got to take him to the doctor. I'm like, I'll take Uncle Jim to the doctor.
Yeah.
You go to
You
work.
go to work.
And that's all we did. We just came up with ways to help people make sure that they got their money, because if they didn't get their money, I didn't get mine.
Indeed, indeed. And how much you grew that business in the end, or is it still you're still managing it?
No, in 2011, I sold the hotel staffing business and two of the three restaurants all as a package, because
Hmm.
people liked how I moved the housekeepers to help them clean the apartments that I was managing. And then we had the people also work in the restaurants, because, if you can serve at a banquet in a hotel, you can serve in a restaurant
Restaurant.
here.
Yeah.
So we just had an exercise of just keeping people working, right? Where you didn't have to worry about, can I get 40 hours? I'm trying to say, hey, I might need you to do 50 or 60 hours, right?
Mm.
So it's that type of thing where we just kept the same people working. I had a better retention rate than Marriott, right? Because when they don't have work, they just send people home.
Mm.
I would send you to another hotel.
There you go.
Say, maybe you're not working at the Marriott today, maybe you're working at the Hilton, right? So, I mean, we had a better, wider net that we could give people hours within so people would stay.
Indeed, indeed. And then when you sold this business, why did you do that? I mean, you're making profit, you're making good money. Why would you wanted to sell it? And then,
That,
yep, go
yeah.
on.
No, well, it was scalability, right? Because the
Mm.
only way to grow a hotel staffing business is open more offices,
Mm.
and the only way to grow your restaurant is to buy more restaurants, right? I mean, you just can't get more square footage, and you just can't get more traffic through the door at some point in time. So I wanted to get into a business that was more scalable, because, with scale in a hotel staffing or restaurant business, there's a whole host of human resource problems that you got to deal with as well, right? I mean, it's just people. When you're
Yep.
dealing with people, there's a different set of problems. And there's a point in time after being a state trooper for 7 years and running that type of business for another 8, 9 years, I'm like going, man, I'm just
A little tired.
not happy here. Yeah, a little tired of it.
Mm.
So I wanted to sell, get cash, and then find a business that was scaling better or faster or easier. And that's how I ended up in software, right? So think about that. I had no software background, still don't, but I've been in software now since 2012.
Got it, got it. And
Can't code
it's
anything.
and you don't have to, because if you know how to sell, I think you can
Yeah.
hire people to get this coded for you, isn't it?
There you go. There you
There
go.
you go.
Yeah. Well, and I call myself a product owner, which is I make a good connection to the market.
Mm.
I listen to what the market needs. In my case right now, it's accountants, and accountants are trying to, they're trying to get into advisory services, give people better advice, how to run their business better, make more cash. So I built products for both business owners and accountants to make more cash, right? Using the techniques that I wrote in one of my books.
Indeed. And I want to learn more about that technique too. But before we get into that, let's start with, why did you choose to get into software business? What was the reason?
The dot-com thing of the 90s, showed that there was rapid growth there. The internet was really becoming widely popular, in the, I'll say 2005 to 2012, and everything was kind of moving that way. And that's the trend that I felt, because I was being gravitated towards that with just the products I was using, right? I wanted
Mhm.
everything online. So for me, I'm like going, that's where I need to be. It was a draw for me to do that, mainly because I felt that that's where I could make the biggest, not only impact, but I could make the most money. I mean, if I'm honest.
Yeah, why not? I mean, if
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
drives
I mean,
you,
yeah,
yeah.
that's right. Yeah. So I was just trying to make money, and it worked out in my favor.
Great.
But to go out to Seattle. I went out to Seattle on a contract for consulting and building some businesses for a nonprofit, and I went out there with the purpose of meeting somebody that was in software that would give me a chance, right? But I wasn't looking for Microsoft or Amazon or Expedia or all that. I wanted the small guy that had an idea that I could get in on the ground floor of, right? So and it took me about a year to find that person to do it, and I ran across somebody that was trying to solve the banking problem in 2008. I call it when the bankers burnt the world down.
That
People
was
were
the
losing their
year.
houses, all that type of stuff. So big time recession came in. Well, the banks left the small business lending space. They stopped giving money to the small businesses because of a regulation called Dodd-Frank came in. And Dodd-Frank required banks to do just as much work for a $5,000 loan as they do a $5 million loan, right? It was just a ridiculous amount of paperwork to make sure it was, legit and make sure that people didn't get hurt in the process. Well, when that happened, the big banks left the space. And that's what opened up the whole market for, if you've ever heard of On Deck or Cabbage or, all these marketplace lenders, right, that lend to small businesses.
It's not like
So
payday loans, right? Is it? It's different.
no, it's a little bit different than payday loans. I mean, I would say, yeah, different than payday loans, but it's still, exorbitant rates, right? It's still some higher rates for that. But they were making it easy for small businesses to get money. Well, in 2012, the banks had reversed their thought process saying, oh my God, these companies blew up and got crazy big in 4 years. We need to go back and get our market back, the one that we gave up. So what this founder had done, James Walter had done, is he had built some products for banks that automated the process, meaning that it would connect to accounting systems, pull out what the bank needed, and create an automatic kind of loan application process. And that made it easier for everybody, right? Well, that's what I wanted to get in on. I'm like, okay, that's a new idea. That's automating a process in a foundational industry, banking, right? You're trying to disrupt banking. And so I wanted to get into that.
Got it. And when you had this epiphany, did you looked into the market? Were there other products? What was going on at that time? And what did you see from your research that encouraged you to move ahead with this?
I lived the problem, right? I had lived banking and trying to get lines of credits and loans with banks while I was trying to build, the restaurants, the property, the hotel staffing companies, and I had lived the pain of a small business owner trying to get money from the banks. And what I saw was an opportunity to make it easier for both sides, right? Even if it was a no, it was going to be a quick no. It wasn't 2 to 4 weeks waiting and shuffling paper back and forth between the bank. It was like going, okay, I'm going to give you access to the accounting system. You grab what you need and then tell me yes or no. Right? That's what I saw is it was going to solve a lot of people's pain, especially the ones that, from my side, the business owner side. And that's what made me, I think, credible in the marketplace for him, for the software developer, because he didn't have anybody that could go into the bank and tell the story of why this was important.
Interesting. And mostly the founders I interview on our pod, either they're solving. There is a saying in US, something like "eat your own dog shit," something like that. So they're trying to
Dog food.
yeah, dog food. Sorry. So sorry about this. So either they're trying to solve their own problem, or they're trying to solve a problem which they came across while they're working for someone else. This was the first case for you. How did you manage to get? Did you like funded the whole startup yourself, or did you had somebody like co-founded with you who developed the software for you? How does that work?
In that case, I came in, underneath, they were already up and running. They'd already been running for about a year and a half. So I came in, as just a small piece of it at the, on the bottom, like the third tier of it, because I didn't have any software experience. I didn't have any coding experience. I'd never sold software. So they gave me just a little bit of a small piece on the end of it. So because they'd already been working on it for 2 years and building the product behind the scenes, they just hadn't had any sales yet. Does that make sense?
Indeed. Yeah, understood.
So what's funny when you said it was a dog, you got to eat your own dog food, and what I always think that is you should use your own product. Meaning,
Mm,
if I build something, that it should be something that I'm using as well. If I don't use my own product, then how am I going to convince somebody else to do it?
yeah.
But I always add something to that. I always say, hey, it's not dog food until a dog eats it, which means until you sell it to somebody else, it's not dog food yet. So,
Yeah.
and that's what I was there to do. I was there to help banks understand it. And that's really was the foundation of what I'm doing now, started then in 2012. And what I mean by that is if I walked into a bank and tried to sell them bank software, they say, oh, well, what bank did you work for? Well, I didn't work for a bank.
Mm,
So how am I going to sell anything to a bank when I don't even know what happens inside the bank?
yeah.
But what I did is I said, I'm going to tell you a story from my point of view, the person you're actually talking to every day, the person that you're actually selling these loans to. So I built a 1 hour talk on how to talk to me, how to talk to the small business owner, right? And that's all it was. I would go in and say, hey, do you want to get more business from small business owners? I'm going to tell you to speak in their language. I'm going to show you what they look at. I'm going to show you what a small business owner does on a daily basis, right? I'm going to give you a peek behind the other side of the curtain, and bankers are like going, what? Yeah, we need to hear that, because they always hear it from bankers that have
Mm,
never run a business. So they think that, all of this academia that they have from their banking, point of view, they didn't know what the business owner was hearing. They didn't know how they thought about it. They didn't know how they made the decisions or why they were there in the first place. So that was my introduction into the banking. And because I started to get known for this little talk, I got invited to the graduate school of banking at the University of Washington to talk to a larger group of banks all at once. And that's how I got, the name, right? Got involved with teaching this. And that developed from a 1 hour presentation on how to talk to me to now a 2 days full seminar called The Clear Path to Cash.
it's interesting. And you're delivering this live coaching still, or is it like handed over to someone else?
Nope, I'm doing it all. In 2019, I left the software company, right? Had some cash. And then you know what happened in 2020. So I did what everybody did. I wrote books.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I wrote a book, and around end of 2020, 2021, I had the opportunity to get kind of back into it, doing this full time,
Okay.
and built the Clear Path to Cash, started selling the courses, started, working on other tools around this, such as the software that I built, the Clear Path to Cash, and figured out that there was some market, right? People, especially after the COVID, shutdown, people were more interested in understanding cash flow. Before that, they just kind of, that's the thing. Yeah, we got
Yeah,
cash or we
sales
don't.
minus
But
expense profit. There you go.
yeah, but what's funny about that? That's only cash generating activities, right? And I look at that as a vertical activity in a business. Starts with sales and just keeps subtracting things out to profit. Nobody looks at their company horizontally, right? Which is the cash conversion activities. How long does it take, right? I make the sale, but when do I get the money? I bought the inventory, but when do I pay the bill, right?
Mm,
Those type of things. Or how long does the inventory sit there on the shelf? So you have to look at it from two different directions, both vertically and horizontally.
indeed. I've been reading this book recently called Profit First from Mike. I don't know if you have
Sure.
ever had. Okay, you had.
I
And
am one of his partners.
yeah, there
If
you
you
go.
if you go under the website, yeah, I'm a profit first. Meaning he only has like 10 actual sponsor partners,
Mm,
and he selected me as the natural extension to profit first.
awesome. I would love to have an intro with him if that's okay with you. Love to
Yeah,
ask him to
I've been on
come
his
on the pod.
podcast 2 or 3 times. Yeah.
Ah, perfect. Awesome. So the things I've learned about my own business just by reading this book was fascinating. It's like if I'm doing this, then I'm making sure that my business is in profit from day one. What does your new software, which you building your class cash flow, Mike, new software, how does it differentiate from other providers, other coaches?
Yeah. First of all, they don't have it. Right. Right. So most of them will give you a spreadsheet where I've got an actual software product that does the exact calculations that I've wrote in my book. Right.
Mm,
I mean, and there's, we'll say, minding your business for hidden cash.
Mm.
Is it's six calculations in one visual that tells the story of where cash is leaking out of your business. I don't see that anywhere else. Why? Because I started making it up 10 years ago. So it's not taught in a school. It's taught in the hard knocks, the streets of hard knocks. The other thing is that I've got this thing called the fast money formula, where these interactive sliders on what is the perfect amount of inventory, what's the perfect amount of days I should get paid in, what's the perfect, and you get to set it. It's a cash flow optimization tool. I also have the simple valuation formula, which is a way to see that the actions you're taking are actually driving value, increasing the value of your company. And I overlaid non-financial data, and that's something that no other coach does. They'll tell you the financial data, but they won't tell you the story of why things happen. Well, with my software, you can overlay your story, and you go, oh, yeah, that's when we hired Cashflow Mike, and look what happened. Or that's when we went to that conference or introduced a new product. It's going to help you tell the story on one visual. So I think that's what it's better at, is telling the story and explaining what happened and what to do next.
So in theory, then, is it? Am I allowed to say that it's an accounting software, but it gives you superpowers, or is it?
Yeah, I think I like to call it the ultimate advisor's toolkit, right?
Mm.
It's, I think it can be used concurrently with accounting software. I wouldn't call it accounting software because I always think of that as recording transactions and all that. This is more of an advisor's analysis piece of software, which is taking the data that you have. When I think about accounting software, I think about it being the historian of the company, right? It's recorded everything we did. This is the analysis of what we did and the GPS of what we should do.
Understood. So it actually gives you an understanding of how your business is doing and where you have more potential going forward or in the past,
Yeah,
which you missed, kind of.
that's a good way to put it. Yeah, that's a good
Great.
way to put it. It's got some traditional analysis in there too, like
Mm.
ratio type analysis. I call it the financial doctor
Mm.
because it doesn't just tell you what the ratios are; it tells you what to do about it, right?
Indeed, indeed.
How to improve it.
This conversation is going so well, Mike. I want to stick to it, but we are all limited with time. And I also have one more section in the pod, which is the lightning round, where I've drafted six
Oh,
quick fire questions for you. So I want to go through them also. And it's like, so before we go into the lightning round, then I would like to ask you a personal question.
okay.
Throughout your journey and experience, there must have been some valuable lessons learned, right? If you don't mind sharing, could you please reflect on your experiences and tell us about one mistake or a setback that you encountered along the way that you now consider um, not a regret, like a lesson learned? And additionally, what advice would you give our listeners based on this experience?
Yeah. So I mean, I think when I tell the story of rapid growth, in the hotel staffing company, because that was my real first like heart punch, like, oh my God, I'm going to fail, right?
Mm.
Because
Mm.
again, you take out a second mortgage on your house, you max your credit cards, you burn your savings, you dip into your retirement, you make every mistake possible just trying to stay alive. And that's, I know it. I know that feeling. I know what a panic attack feels like. I know what an argument with your wife feels like because she's asking you, are you going to take a paycheck this month? It's those type of things where you've put it all on the line, but now you're impacting other people's lives. And at the time, I didn't know what was going to happen. We're just trying to grow and keep up with it. I'm going into new markets, and I'm unaware of some regulations and do I need a permit for this or do I need a city business license for that? There's all these things that just pile on you really fast. And I call that whole collection of things growing broke, meaning you can be so successful that you run out of money. it's
Mm.
it's the craziest thing. So I'm sitting with my grandfather, and then I had a mentor say about the same thing, and it stuck, which was, you can only control what you can control. The other stuff you just got to react to. So stop fighting battles that haven't been, started yet. Because I'm trying to avoid things. I'm trying to try to make as much risk mitigation strategy around me as I can. it just drives you crazy because I'm trying to head off anything that could hurt us. And at the same time, it's just stressing me out. So my grandfather says, hey, you need to control what you can control and stop fighting battles that don't exist. Right. And I'm going, man, that's really powerful. And that's kind of what I do now. In software, same way. When people say, oh, well, if you do that discount code, if you do this, that, or the other, somebody's going to cheat and game the system. I used to be the type of guy that would try to, prevent you from gaming or cheating the system. But now I'm looking at it like going, well, nobody's done that yet. So let's not try to fight it until somebody does it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's what I mean by not fighting the battle that hasn't existed yet.
No, definitely. I run myself a startup where we enable businessmen like yourself to create the community and then create courses and sell digital products, etc. And every single time I sign up a new customer, they're always looking for some kind of discount or some kind of like better deal. If they're on a call with me and they tell me something about, you know what, Ash, if you improve this or that, or if you remove this or you change this wording, that will help you, I give them discount. And the reason I give them discount is they, first of all, they manage to put a call in the diary and try to talk to me, and then they're giving me their feedback, which is, and we give away hundreds and hundreds of dollars of Amazon vouchers to our users who are using our platform to give us feedback. This person is giving me that money, that advice for free, so why not offer some
Yeah,
discount, right? So that
makes sense.
really helps. Great, Mike, thank you so much for sharing all this information. Should we move into our lightning round?
Yeah, I'm kind of wordy, so who knows?
There you go. We'll try our best. I've got six
All
quick
right.
fire questions for you. If you think that one of these questions you don't want to answer, just give me a skip and then we move to the next one. Is that
All
okay?
right.
Yeah.
I don't
Okay,
know.
great.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Let's do it. Number one, what's the top three strategies to maintain your cash flow in a streamlined manner in 2025?
Yeah. All right. So the top three things I would tell somebody is just, without looking at any of your numbers or anything like that, maintain 3 to 6 months operating expense in cash, right? Because that gives you time. If you make a mistake, it gives you time to work it out. So if you're spending $10,000 a month, have $30 to $60,000 just there. Because again, if you make a mistake, you got time. Second one to me is try to maintain a balance in your ARAP. AR is accounts receivable. That means the time that it takes to come in. If things are coming in 30 days, try to maintain the balance of paying in around 30 or 35 days, right? So the closer you can get those together, the more opportunities you have if you get into a problem to pull a lever like going, oh, I can make a few phone calls and get money in faster, or I can sit on an invoice a little bit longer, right? And if you're running inventory, this would be number three. If you're running inventory, understand what the actual number is you should have. Stop guessing. Some people just go, I don't know, give me 5 of those and 10 of those and 6 of these. Here's the formula, right? The formula is the average number that you sell per month. We'll call it 200. I'm just throwing a number out there.
Yeah.
Divided by the number of times you can get that product per month. We'll call it weekly. So that means 4 times a month. So 200 divided by 4 equals 50. I don't need to buy 100. I don't need to buy 200. I only need to buy 50. And if you do that, you keep up with your sales volume and you don't run out. So there's my top 3 strategies for you.
That's
See, I
great.
told you I was wordy. I told you I was
Yeah.
wordy.
But that's spot on. That's what our founders
Yeah.
need to hear, right? That's amazing.
Yep.
What book would you recommend to our audience and why?
My books. you know, throughout time, it's shifted, right? Just, I mean, of course, I wrote my own books now, but I have found that finding the book that is attacking your current problem is where I've always been best. The one that had the most impact on me, it was 2 different books. One of them was called The World is Flat, right? And I read that in the early 2000s. And what they were talking about then was the globalization and how in the future, again, this was 2000, we'll say 3 or 4, in the future, there's going to be less borders for trade. Meaning that, I could be working with you in the UK and I'm sitting in Texas. I've got work that I've outsourced to Pakistan, meaning that's where I see that the world is flat. And once you do that, you can see where economies of scale and things that you can do to actually grow your business. So the world is flat was one that opened my eyes up to the future. The other one was good to great, right? And good to great was the thing I took away from that was putting the right people on the bus. When I was building out a team, if I didn't know exactly the job, description, I didn't build the job description first. I hired the person first and then built the job description for that person. And I had more success that way. And it's a really weird way to look at it because you're like, oh no, I need an operations manager.
Yeah.
But then you turn down the person that's not a true operations manager, but he's the right fit. He's the right guy, right? I'm working with a marketing person right now who's not a true marketing person, but he's got something that you can't teach. I can teach skill. I can't give you the heart. I can't give you the want to do it. I can't give you, that will, right? Skill versus will. So when I find somebody with heart and that's hungry, that's more important to me than a degree or an experience.
Indeed, indeed. What one attribute or characteristic in your mind of a successful founder?
I think patience.
Mm,
But believe it or not, and I'm not saying patience is in being slow. I'm talking about being deliberate.
mm,
And here's what I mean by that. And I didn't used to think this way. Again, as a trooper in the Army, I always think that I got to attack problems, right? I got to be aggressive with everything I do. The older I've gotten and, 14 companies later, I've realized that I don't have to solve every problem right now, right? Unless it's a life or death situation or a safety thing, I can take my time and think through it a little bit better and think through it in the fact that if I do this, what happens next, and come up with some scenarios and try to understand what could happen because of my actions. So a little bit of patience and a little bit more deliberation, I think, is a critical skill for any founder.
indeed, indeed. What's your favorite personal productivity tool or habit?
Oh, you know what? I actually like to walk outside as my productivity habit. Like every 30 to 60 minutes, I've got a beautiful backyard. It's just amazing.
Mm,
And I have found that if I get up from this desk and I just go outside, I'll either instantly solve a problem, whatever I was thinking on. I'll have a different thought. I mean, it is the most creative creation I get every single day, and I get it several times a day. Right? It's one of those things where I feel like I'm energized, re-energized over and over and over again. So I don't get tired. I don't get, rushed or whatever. Just get up from your desk, go outside, and try not to think of anything. I don't know what it is. There's something about your subconscious when you're not thinking about the problem that you're working on. It just pops into your head. Like
that-
sometimes, like you get on a bike and it just pops into your head, or you're working out and it pops in your head.
yeah,
It's the weirdest thing. Walking away from this desk is my best productivity tool.
awesome. What's a new or a crazy business idea you would love to pursue if you had time?
Oh, yeah, that's that's a good one. So we play around with this all the time. All right. So when you're, you built 14 companies, I don't know what it is, or you call yourself Cashflow Mike. Everybody that comes over to your house to drink a beer, to throw cornhole or whatever, they all have a business idea. One that I think would be funny. It would probably be terrible, but it would be funny to do. And there's another one I think could be legit. The one that I think is funny, we talked about having called the pitch pickup, right? It's founders you put in the back of a pickup truck, and then they have between one stoplight and another stoplight to pitch their idea. And if not, they get kicked out of the pickup truck if you don't like it. wherever we're at in the city, right? Like you just so, nope, you're out. And you kick them out and you put them on the curb. I think that would be a funny TV show to watch, right? That they
Yeah,
got just between two stoplights, from red to red,
go on.
to pitch. Yeah, and
Pitch
if you
it.
don't like, if you like it, you get to go on to the next round, which is the next set of stoplights. If you don't like it, you get put out on the curb.
Awesome.
I
I
think
would
that would
love,
be funny,
I would love
huh?
to watch that show. Why not?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Because you're
yeah.
like going, man, I don't know where I'm going to be dropped off in the city, right? It ain't like you're dropping them off 100 miles away from home. You're just running around downtown or
Hit
something
the
like that.
same. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's the same.
But you get kicked out of the truck. That's kind of funny.
Yeah.
The, uh,
What's
the
yep.
the real one though, I think is necessary. Is that there's no one place to go to like book a food truck,
Hmm.
right? And this came up the other day, like going because we got like food trucks that come to the neighborhood every once in a while and kind of post up around the rec center and all that. I'm like going, there should be one place like an Expedia or like a hotels.com for food trucks where if I owned one, I could list my thing there and my availability, and you could book right there on the website, right? And you book the food truck, so everybody local, and it could be nationwide. You just go your locale, right? It's
Mm.
the same thing as anything else, or worldwide. But anybody with a food truck goes there, and you go, oh, I'm feeling like we should have tacos, or we should have pizza, or we should have whatever it is, and you book your food truck, and it comes to your location on your scheduled date.
Very interesting. Like a restaurant coming to your place instead of you going to the restaurant.
Yeah, I mean, right now you got to figure out where the food trucks are, and then how do I contact them? How do I book them? There's not a central booking location for that, and
For
so
that.
anybody that's out there as a founder, that might be a good idea.
Yeah, yeah, why not? Great. Mike, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your story, unpacking the last years and years of building with these businesses and some of the ups and downs. People want to get in touch with you, people want to know you, or people want to ask you a question. What's the best way to do it?
I'm at cashflowmike.com. So if you can remember Cashflow Mike, that's the best way to get in touch with me. I've got a contact form right there on the website. Uh, Here's the best thing about the website right now. If you just want to learn how to analyze financial statements in 7 minutes or less, I got a free video lesson. So you just go to my website. Right underneath the header video is a, hey, stop. Do you want a free video lesson? Inside that lesson, you get a digital copy of one of my books, A 7 Minute Conversation. You get the video course, and you get the spreadsheet that goes with it. So, I mean, there's three things you get for free. Well, I won't say free. It costs you your email address, right?
Mm.
So, if you're willing to give up an email address for a free video lesson that people pay hundreds of dollars for, and it's included in my big course, you get a taste of what I do, you get a feel for what it's like, and you learn something instantly for free.
Indeed. Perfect. Great stuff. Well, Mike, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your inspiring journey and the impactful work you're doing. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on Founders Podcast.
Yeah, you're the best. I appreciate you.